Hey, and welcome back to the First Issue Club. We are your weekly comic book reading podcast. Is that the right way to say it?
You got it. But I know you don't get to look at Greg this week.
I'm all
It's
thrown
throwing
off.
you off.
I'm completely out of sorts. I'm wearing different headphones than normal. They feel tiny on my head. My voice sounds more booming out of them, though.
You sound good.
I kind of like.
You sound good. Yes, you gotta say the catchphrase.
Just like Sue Storm, we're the podcast that loves a good read.
You nailed it. You nail it every time.
I love to hear that. We're going to talk about some very buzzworthy first issues, as we always do.
Mm-hmm.
If you're new to the whole First Issue Club deal, welcome. You should know that we're going to talk about comic book news for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We also offer a Patreon premium fic.
Ooh. Oh, yeah, we have to do all the stuff that Greg normally does.
I know. That's why I was like, let me check this off right at the top. Otherwise, I'll forget.
Yeah.
So if you need more fic in your life, check us out on the Patreon. Vargas and I'm Mike D.
And I'm Vargas. There it is. You got it. Okay.
We're really...
Check the box.
Without Greg here, we're going to knock this out in like a half an hour. And we're going to be talking about a new 007 book.
Yes.
By Philip Kennedy Johnson. And that's going to be its own special episode. Plus, we're doing the normal Patreon episode. And on that one, we might get into video games a little bit this time around.
You know, who knows? It's a mystery even to us.
And I think we're welcoming a new patron who asked us some questions about why we prefer or when we prefer CGC versus CBCS.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a good one.
We're going to be speaking to that too. Of course, as some of our long-timers know, I've got a lot of takes on grading, so
yeah,
I'll happily dust off my takes.
I'm super excited to talk James Bond with you. It was a blast talking to Greg. Greg and I are going to continue to do that Bond series on the Patreon. But while he is indisposed, I'm super excited to hear your takes on this number one.
Yeah.
So
is it a good jumping on point? I don't know. We'll get into it. You'll have to listen and see. Greg, we should mention, he's talked about this before on the podcast, did have a child.
That's number 2 for him.
Baby boy number 2.
So there's 3 children in that house now.
Got him. They'll all share a playroom together.
That's right.
So we'll miss Greg over the next couple weeks potentially, but he's going to be back in action here on Fix soon.
And of course, congratulations.
Congrats, baby.
You want to get into the news? You got any other housekeeping we need to do?
I don't think so.
Okay, perfect.
Let's do it.
So, of course, well, to me, I would think this is the biggest news. I was planning on covering the new James Tynion book this week.
Yep.
World Tree, or World TR33.
As one of our local comic shops called it.
As one of our local comic shops called it. Did not have the heart to correct them. But the whole thing got misprinted, I guess.
Right.
I did look on eBay, of course, to see what they're going for. Looks about $20.
Wow, $20.
Yeah, for a misprinted World TR33.
I am surprised by that.
Yeah.
So the shop that I go to did not pull them.
Okay.
They just went ahead and sold them.
Uh-huh.
It begs the question. So they are reprinting this.
Yeah.
And I order a lot of my comics on pre-order from Midtown out of New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And they handle things by the book because they're a larger operation. There's more of a paper trail for them. They've got creators to appease because they draw big talent like that for signings and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So when a creator says, I want to send this back to the printer, they're going to listen. Midtown has a Tynion signing the week this book comes out.
Yep.
And so, of course, they're not going to sell the misprinted issue. So I've got a clean copy coming from Midtown, and then I've got my dirty misprinted copy. So I already got to look at that.
Hell yeah.
The blacks are too black is basically what's going on.
Sure.
Some of the pages seem like way too saturated. The cover especially, like if you look at the cover, what it's supposed to look like on a computer monitor versus what the cover looks like in person, it's like all the details are gone. And I think that's the biggest issue with it. But you're an artist. You expect the art you're putting out in the world to look a certain way.
Sure.
I get how that would be upsetting, and you'd be like, yeah, we paid for it. It's a creator-owned thing.
Yeah.
Let's do it right.
For sure.
But as a collector, it begs the question, will there be more of the clean copy? Or will there be more of the dirty copy?
True.
Or maybe it's a little of both. Is there so much of this comic book printed now because of this that it's almost less of a collector's item than it would have been if this book blows up?
Yeah.
It's
I think
remains to be seen on that one.
I think regardless, misprinted ratio variants, if they exist, are going to be bananas.
Sure.
Right?
And I don't know. I picked up the A cover, and I don't know. I would assume all the interiors of every issue got printed the same.
One would assume, yes. And they just staple a new cover on the front. So the variant covers might look okay, and then just have screwed up interiors.
Yeah.
So watch out for those when you're getting them slabbed or whatever.
Yeah. It's a weird thing that it's like Diamond, the publishers, can't really enforce, where they say to comic shops in whatever notices they send them via email, hey, either send these back or destroy them.
Yeah,
and they don't, because people go gaga over misprinted stuff.
One would assume it would function like a recall. It's not like, hey, you need to send this back. It's like, hey, you can send this back and get cleaner copies. Although I guess
that's the thing. If you don't, I'm assuming you're not going to, if you don't send them back,
you're not going to get refunded.
And you know what? One of the things used to be with this is that it was like rip the covers off.
Yeah.
And then send us the covers back.
Right.
Because then it's like, it's lower load, it's easier effort for you to send something in, but all the comics with ripped off covers are essentially useless, right?
Yep.
I think that's technically how they're supposed to handle it.
Yeah, because they're just going to pulp them anyway.
Right.
Right. They're just going to destroy them. So, yeah.
But a fun thing to have.
Yeah, exactly. Certainly in the world of collectibles, it is a collectible item.
I should have bought 2 copies. I should have got you one.
Well,
but I didn't know better at the time, really.
Who knows?
Yeah.
And when 100,000 of the clean copies drop, it's going to be a 50-cent book anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly right.
No slam against it. I haven't read it yet. I'm going to get it. I'm sure it's going to be great.
Should I talk about it on this week's episode? I've read it.
Ooh, that's hot. Do we drop it? Are we going to get in trouble from James?
I don't think we're big enough to get in trouble.
James, don't sue us.
I've got takes on it, though. It's a take-worthy book.
Okay.
How about I at least put that out there?
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Talk about World Tree. The second biggest news, I think, is the formation of a new publisher.
Yes.
From execs out of Comixology, called DSTLRY.
Yep.
Some huge creator names.
Do you have the list of names?
I do.
Okay.
I'll just go down the list.
It's like all your favorite creators. It's like a great list.
Basically, name an indie writer or artist, and they're probably on this list. Scott Snyder, Tula Lotay, James Tynion, Junko Mizuno is the only person I never heard of.
Yeah.
Ram V, Marika Andolfo, Joel Jones, Jock, Becky Cloonan, Brian Azzarello, Elsa Chartier,
yes.
right? Stephanie Phillips, Lee Garbett, Mark Bernandin, that's right, and Will Dennis is Will Dennis is the editor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mark is mostly like a columnist, I think. He's like a Hollywood Reporter guy.
He's like a writer.
And has written for TV shows and stuff. I think if you're not thinking about turning your stuff into a comic book show or something at some point, you're like not doing comic books right in 2023. So it makes sense to have someone like that on staff, whether it's he wants to just get back into writing comics, or if he's there as kind of like
a transition guy
to help advise on like moving to screenplays and stuff like that. Who knows? But I think that's the ultimate goal of anything where you've got independent creators like this in this large of an amount getting together to say, let's start our own thing, is for ownership and the ability to walk away where you're making the most amount of money out of streaming options and things like that getting picked up on your stories.
Yeah, and that's what the focus is, reportedly, from them, is it's creator focused.
Yeah.
So hopefully these folks will be getting some pretty peachy deals with, adaptations and all that, where the money is.
Yep.
What I think is the most interesting is specifically Scott Snyder. He's a pretty indie focused guy these days.
Yep.
But he's got his own, stuff he's doing. Best Jacket owns Nocterra. So maybe he's just saving his best ideas for this new thing where he doesn't have to give a slice of the pie to Image.
Well, I think it was, so he started doing a lot of Comixology originals.
Yeah.
And I think these people, like you mentioned, there's a connection to Comixology there. A lot of the comic book community, I think, liked working with those people. And that's why you saw a lot of people releasing stuff on Comixology and then moving on to publish it on Dark Horse or Image or wherever.
Sure.
I think they wanted to continue those relationships with those people, but so many creators are souring, or the comic book community at large is souring on Comixology.
Yeah, because it basically doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, so it was like, how can we keep these relationships and deals going without being in Jeff Bezos' pocket?
Yeah. The other interesting thing I saw, let me read my notes real quick just to confirm. But I think I saw that they're focusing on, oversized premium format single issues. That's their focus.
I love it.
So they're doing probably those big golden size or the magazine size or whatever that's become pretty popular, though, like the Black Label books.
DC Black Label stuff's a great way to think about it, I think.
Yeah.
Where we'll probably have cool spot glossy covers.
Yep.
I already signed up for their email list.
Smart move.
And on the site, it was like, get our exclusive offers and drops before, the rest of the crowd sees them. And I think they're maybe creating a little bit of like, maybe there's a plan to create a little heat and buzz around the comics by treating them like a sneaker drop or something. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Sneaker is just the first thing I think of when I hear drop. But some of those buzzworthy things where people are like, man, I got to line up and get the copy of this prestige premium format thing that's going to be somewhat limited and be a collector's item. That's probably a good route to create some community buzz that would propel something like this to get optioned a little quicker, because you can just like, hey, get on Twitter and see how much of the discourse there is surrounding this book. That was one of the things that I think Bad Idea like initially did right.
Yeah.
And then so many people were confused by like how exactly to get Bad Idea books that they stopped being in like it completely impossible to find.
Yeah.
And now that's changed a little bit, but maybe this place tries to recreate some of that buzz in a different way.
So the other interesting part about their business model is what they're doing with digital books.
Okay.
I don't know if you read any of those. So the digital purchases, they're available for release day and date, but then only for about a week after, and then they pull the book off their digital marketplace.
Wow.
But digital purchases come with, and I'm quoting, let's see, with benefits, discounts, exclusive items, and and meetups with creators depending on the issue. So like you buy a digital issue, but it might come with something else.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. Like, for example, you might get invited to a special whatnot chat room wherein they're signing stuff, remarking stuff.
Correct.
Live on camera for people per request of like the, 100 people who got led into this thing.
Correct. On top of that, they're going to open a digital marketplace for distillery books, and you can resell your digital copies at your price point.
Wow.
So it's
interesting.
It's eBay for digital comics.
Yeah. Well, I wonder how this works in terms of it being like, are the comic books going to be essentially NFTs? And is it...
Well, they aren't NFTs in that there are multiple copies of them.
Yes.
What I'm wondering is...
how do you sell the rights to your copy if it's not tied to...
It would have to be controlled through like their website or their app.
Yeah.
Right? So you sell it, you no longer have access to that digital copy on distillery.com or whatever it's going to be.
Because I think I'm out on NFT stuff.
Yeah, NFTs are garbage and don't buy them.
Yep.
And they specifically say we're not doing NFTs.
Okay.
They've called that out.
Yeah, good. I'm glad to hear it. Just the environmental stuff and bullshit. It's just like the comic book community
did not embrace NFTs.
Did not embrace it the way that like, everyone initially thought like the art community would embrace it.
Correct.
So glad to hear that. I love the idea of there's this thing with like people who play card games online. Like Magic the Gathering has a big like online following, and part of the fun of any card-based hobby is, you play Marvel Snap and stuff like that. I don't think Marvel Snap lets you trade cards back and forth with other users.
No.
But imagine if it did. How much fun would that be on our like Discord with you being like, I got this variant of a card, but I'm looking for, character A, B, or C. Does anyone on the board want to like flip it for something else with me? Like that would be so... I don't play Marvel Snap.
Yeah.
I might be interested in playing it just because it'd be more fun engagement with like my comic book friends online.
Yeah.
If you could do something like that.
For sure. Well, now you can do that with Distillery.
So that is interesting. It makes digital comics feel less like throwing your money into a black hole.
Yeah. Correct.
I mean, and obviously you're putting your money towards a piece of art that someone created, and you're getting to digest that art. That is essential to the comic book experience.
Yes.
But it is impractical or dismissive of the hobby and the hobbyists to assume that that's the only thing that drives comic book reading.
Oh, for sure.
Collecting is core and essential to the hobby.
Yeah.
And
it's right hand, left hand.
Exactly right. And I want, if I pay the same price for a digital copy as I would a tangible copy, I'm going to want the tangible copy every single time. And the idea that they might have some sparsity in a digital copy, or that I might be able to gain premium access to buy other merchandise if I do buy a digital copy. Maybe I get the digital copy, then 3 months from now, hey, anyone who bought the digital copy can now unlock this variant we have for another comic book. Yeah. And you're like, sweet, like no one else is going to be able to have access to this. It's going to be a super limited run.
Yeah.
Like perks like that get me really excited about collecting digitally.
Yeah, for sure. And the last important thing to mention is about this digital marketplace is any transactions associated with whatever, book A benefit to a certain percentage the creators of that original book.
Yes.
Even though it's a reseller's market. Right. So if my distillery number 1 becomes $100 digital book, James Tynion still gets a percentage of that resale sale.
Is that confirmed that that's how it's going to work?
That is confirmed.
That's great.
And it's amazing, right?
Imagine if James Tynion got the smallest slice of the resale of Something is Killing the Children.
He'd never have to write again.
No, he'd be fucking loaded.
Yeah, if he got 0.5% of every sale.
I was on CLZ the other day, and my Something is Killing the Children #5 second or third printing book sells for $80 or something.
Yeah.
And it's just man, every one of these books in the single digit issues resells for a good amount of money.
Yeah.
And it is crazy to think that I don't know how much he made on that comic, but not
enough.
Not near enough for the sales that there were.
For sure. So interesting stuff, regardless, I guess, of how you feel about it. DSTLRY seems to be trying to shake up the market at least a little bit, which is cool.
Yeah, that's cool. And I appreciate, sometimes we clowned on Bad Idea historically on this podcast.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it was just to have, just to be salty.
Sure.
And other times, we've been high in praise of them for the same reason that they're not a lot of new publishers come out and they're saying they claim that they're going to be a breath of fresh air in the comic book industry, or they're going to be a disruptor.
Right.
Every new publisher says that, and all of them are the same.
Yeah.
Except for Bad Idea was really one of those places that did something really odd, that tried to sell comics different, tried to make the secondary market a weird aspect of the collection. If they found out that the retailer, which this at the time was a huge issue for me, that if the retailer themselves were selling copies on eBay for a markup, Bad Idea would blacklist those retailers.
Which 100% do that.
And
that's great.
I really appreciated that because, Mike Russo, or the Budget King, who used to be on this podcast, and I had... we're pulling the series that featured Punchline's first appearance at a comic shop that will remain unnamed in Kansas City, and we're told by a clerk at the store who was tighter with us that the owner more or less took those books out of everybody's pulls, and we're tell him we got shorted.
Yeah,
it's you ordered that book because we pulled it,
right?
Now you're saying you got shorted on it, and you're selling them on eBay for $60 a pop.
Horseshit.
That sucks.
Yeah.
And I love that there was a publisher who was what can we do about that?
Right. Imagine if DC did that.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I'd buy every book they had.
Well, and this was part of the reason, again, I feel bad sometimes about how I buy comics, because I preach so often, support your LCS.
Sure.
But sometimes your LCS isn't the best place to routinely get comic books.
Yeah.
That there are some, when Patrick I pulled Spider-Man, when Patrick Gleason has that webhead cover come out that everyone is going bonkers for, all of a sudden, we didn't get any A covers.
It's not in your box. Yeah.
And then you're buying it from the same shop a month later for $10 a pop because they didn't sell them all on eBay.
Right. That sucks.
That sucks. And it makes me say, I can go onto a Midtown and I can pre-order these things for 60% of the price that I would pay for them at face value, or MSRP, and know 100% of the time I'm going to get the comic books that I pre-order because they're coming from such a large retailer that just doesn't care. I say support your LCS, give your LCS a shot. So if it doesn't work out and you can't support that LCS, sometimes you got to move to a T-Fall or a Midtown, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I wish I lived in New Jersey so I could shop from NJD all the time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, support your local comic shop until they give you a reason not to.
Yep, that's a good way to put it. Because I tried sticking it out for a long time.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you want it to be a relationship. You want it to be a friendship, but like it's a business transaction.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I go to a comic shop here in town that I'll say 85% of the time has the stuff I want, and it's at a regular normal people price. But sometimes it's like, I'm not going to buy this here. I'm going to buy it online because it's overpriced, or they're not doing the right things.
Yeah.
So
right. Sticky situation.
Yep, sure is. Two other little pieces of news. 2 new Hellboy comics are coming from Dark Horse.
Always love Hellboy.
Always cool. Mike Mignola and Chris Robertson are co-writing, with Mike Norton and Dave Stewart doing art and colors.
Oh, I love Mike Norton.
Yep. It's a one-shot focusing on Hellboy. Sorry, it's called Hellboy and the BPRD 1957 From Below.
Okay.
It's a one-shot focusing on Hellboy going out on a mission with his 2 father figures, Professor Brutenholm and Archie Morand. I've not read any Hellboy.
Yeah.
Okay. I have Hellboy. I just have not gotten to it yet.
Yeah.
All right. Don't crucify me.
That was something I caught up on Comixology. One of the things that I appreciate about Comixology was like, there are some of those books that are like immensely popular.
Yeah.
And they say, we've wringed the towel as dry as it's going to get on like physical Omni and trade sales.
Yeah.
And when we moved it to digital, everyone who's bought it digitally at this price has bought it. And then they do those like Black Friday 60, 70% off sales.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy shit, I can get the first 20 issues of this for like
a nickel.
$5. And that's like, I used Comixology for that a lot, to catch up on like classics that I was like, I was a baby or a 5-year-old
right.
when those comics started coming out, and that's a good way to catch up on them.
Yeah. I bought the library edition of Hellboy Volume 1.
Did you now?
On Amazon, because it was like $23.
That's cheap.
A while back.
Yeah.
So I have it. I just haven't gotten to it yet. I'll report back when I earn my Hellboy credentials. All right?
It's good.
So Hellboy with his 2 surrogate dads going on a mission.
Yeah, I'm glad to see Mignola wanting to write Hellboy again. I mean, he's been doing his like Mignola-verse stuff, and he's dipped in and out and back to a lot of those like related stories and one shots or short series. I think there was a time where he kind of ended Hellboy, and it seemed like he was never going to revisit that and just wanted to move forward. But it seems to me like he was more like, Hellboy's story has ended, but we can still play in the long lifespan of Hellboy and go back and tell these stories that existed between like his birth and where they ended the story.
Yeah, you can flesh out some of the missing parts.
Yes.
For sure. For sure. So the other series that's coming out is a prequel series.
Yeah.
That takes place, I guess, millennia before Hellboy even walked to the earth.
Okay.
It's called Panya, the Mummy's Curse. And it's about the titular Panya. I guess she's a living mummy. She features in the Hellboy story, I guess. And it's her story from back when she was a kid in ancient Egypt.
Right on.
So
cool.
Filling out the world of Hellboy, like you were talking. So,
world building, baby.
So, and I love Mignola's art beyond anything else.
Is he doing art on that one?
He's doing covers.
He's doing covers, okay.
At least. Anyway, Hellboy, cool. So the last piece of news I have, I wish Greg was here, because I know that he was consternated about this a while back. We talked about Shazam.
Yes.
And how can Shazam say Shazam
we had
without just flopping back and forth.
We had an avid argument about this.
Yeah. So
Boiled down to intent.
that was my understanding,
Yes.
right? Was that if you don't say it with, a pure heart or whatever,
Yep.
you don't turn. If you're just
Yes.
like, oh, Shazam, like you taking the Lord's name in vain, right? You have to put some stank on it
To get
for it
struck
to
down
sin.
by lightning.
Yeah, right. Well, Mark Waid and Dan Mora, world's finest,
Yeah.
are doing the new Shazam book, and it has been announced that they are changing Shazam's name in the book to
Okay.
the Captain.
Interesting.
And the reason they're doing that, Mark Waid said, is because they needed a name that the character can say
Yeah.
without transforming
Yep.
into his alter ego.
And they can't change him back to Captain Marvel.
Correct. So they went with the Captain.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
The history of that and Captain Marvel and all that stuff is just so bonkers to me.
I desperately want, and this is something I would do if I were a millionaire, right? If I had money, no object, right? I want a documentary, like Ken Burns Jazz,
Yeah.
but I want comic book lawsuits, right?
Yeah, right.
And like the Superman thing,
Mm-hmm.
the Batman thing, Captain Marvel, Spawn
Yeah.
with Neil Gaiman.
Oh, another newsworthy thing, Liechtenstein. Did you see all of those
Yeah.
headlines?
That he's gotten accused of stealing art, right?
Yeah, and someone made a documentary about that, and it started with a creator catching it and being like, "Okay, this guy straight ripped off my work."
Yeah.
And I got paid a dime per page at the time, and this guy sold this painting for $1 million.
Yep.
And then the more and more they looked into it, the more they were like, okay, like almost every single one of these paintings is copied from an old romance comic or maybe an obscure comic strip that was like, at the time, those people were making so many pages for so many books all at once that like a panel that shows up in a museum, you're never going to be like, hey, that was, Paul so-and-so's page 6 from Love and Romance issue 80.
And none of those folks could have anticipated the proliferation of the internet, right?
Yeah, right.
I can take a picture of that art on my Google phone and in 1 second find that issue for sale on eBay. Right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that's a wild. Do you know the name of the documentary? I saw
don't.
that there was one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Um,
That stuff's wild.
But yeah, messed up stuff. I know, like there was an argument kind of about whether or not he was really plagiarizing those things, and there was a lawyer who argued that plagiarism is when you're using someone else's work that harms what they're able to sell their work for. And which I was like, it's still, what he's doing still violates the spirit of art.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was like, I don't really buy that angle of it.
Yeah. Because then, like, what if it's still plagiarism if my art is shittier
Yeah.
and I don't make as much money as the original person,
Yeah.
right? Like, if I drew a Spider-Man,
Yeah.
it's still plagiarism
Right.
and copyright infringement.
Yeah, right.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's all those things.
But they're doing this thing before everyone had like sussed out
Right.
all the rights to those things.
For
too.
sure. Yeah.
And again, like you said, no internet. So how hard is it for someone to even know that Liechtenstein ripped one of your pieces of artwork? It's just
It was impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically impossible.
but
Yeah.
gross story. If you're a comic book fan, it's worth checking out some of those articles on that.
For sure. Yeah. Just Google Liechtenstein, not the country, and you'll find it.
Was his first name Roy?
I think, yeah.
Something like Roy.
Yeah. That's all the news I have. You got anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay. Are we on to...
Oh, can I say
Yes, you may.
I absolutely diehard loved the Marvels trailer.
Oh, sure.
So fucking good.
So much fun.
And I had just listened to Nia DaCosta, who is the director of this movie, on Blank Check, which is, are you familiar with the movie podcast?
Yep. Blank Check podcast.
Yes. So she was a guest on that, and I can't remember what movie she was talking about, but she was so funny, so cool, and I was like, man, I love that this person is making the movie for one of my favorite characters.
Yeah. Yeah, this is going to be a big movie for you, featuring all your favorite Captains
faves.
Marvel.
Yep.
Like attorneys general, right?
Exactly right. We know this movie passes the Bechdel test in the trailer, so we can feel really good about that. It's gonna
until the movie hits, and they're just talking about boys the whole
entire time. There's a lot of like stirring online of whether there's like misleads and who Marvel has announced the different characters are. There's a woman accuser who is Kree, but she doesn't have the blue skin, so people are wondering like, is this L'Oreal?
Oh, sure.
And they're giving us a different name at the moment to mislead us. I don't know. There's a lot of different interesting ways that this could go. I'm interested to see what kind of characters are going to maybe pop up in this that haven't been announced. Captain Marvel or Carol Danvers has like kind of an amazing gallery of villains for having been like such a short stinted character during the original Captain Marvel run and then later during Miss Marvel, which didn't last like a ton of issues, but we got Mystique and you know, Rogue was a big villain of hers, and you know, two big mutants, and we're talking about gearing up the MCU for mutants. So this could be a movie where one of those characters is revealed. We're playing in outer space, so I don't know how likely that is.
Yeah.
But there's some stuff with Sword and the space station that in the comics is called the Peak, but in the movie or in the trailer, it's called Saber.
Saber, yeah.
Which is obviously a nod to Sword.
Right.
And I think it's still Sword. It's just Saber is probably what the specific space station is called. There's just a lot of fun, like, current Marvel comic stuff that seems to be happening in the trailer. And the people involved in it just seem cool. Tonally, it seems like maybe this is going to resonate with the more recent Carol Danvers stuff.
Yeah.
Than the first movie. I liked the first movie more than a lot of people did, but
I loved the first movie.
Yeah, right? Like the throwback to the 90s was really fun. Young Nick Fury and seeing Agent Coulson back again was a blast.
I think the original movie got hampered by the beginning of the superhero fatigue thing.
Sure.
Because if that movie would have come out in 2008, it would have blown people's balls off.
Yeah, right.
You know, like...
I'll say, too,
so good
that the trailer for the first Captain Marvel movie, when it had, like, Carol as, like, a little girl picking herself back up.
Yeah.
And then as a teenager, then as a grown woman, then as a superhero.
Yeah.
And you're just like, this is going to do so much for, like, little girls to see this, like, kick-ass woman just pick herself back up again.
Yeah.
And I don't think I think the commercial and trailer sold that movie like it was going to be girl power, women's lib, like in your face. And it wasn't. It was more of just like a fun sci-fi action movie with scrolls and aliens and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think people just didn't get what they wanted from it.
Yeah.
And Carol wasn't like really fun or silly. And when you see when they were doing press for it, and Samuel L. Jackson and Brie Larson were like chit-chatting together, they were having so much fun.
Yeah.
They were having a blast together. And the chemistry they have just like shooting the shit in interviews like didn't really show up in the movie because they were both playing
kind of straight men characters.
Kind of like straight men characters. So that was a little bit I understand some of the reasons why people don't like it, though I hold that it's a better movie than maybe it's remembered.
For sure. No, I agree. And I think Marvel's going to be a blast. The idea that all three of them have like intertwined powers and they do like a switcheroo every time somebody uses their powers, that's going to be so much fun.
And and also like, this is one of those things where I understand the complaint where people are like, now I have to watch these TV shows to understand what's going on in the movie. And I'm like, yeah, I get that might be frustrating. But for me, seeing Kamala Khan's whole family in the trailer, I was like, there's my friends. Like,
I know those people.
There's those people I know and love. And like, they're all so quirky and have like such fun personalities. And I'm like, oh, I get to like visit and play with them again. And like, they pop into this world. And I know that's another thing, like people who hate these things, like really hate saying like, okay, Hawkeye is talking to Doctor Strange. Like, holy shit, we're seeing those two interact. So much fun. And a lot of people are like, that's not a thing. That doesn't make a movie good, that you just have like two characters interacting with each other.
But it can still be fun.
But it can still be fun. Yeah. And for me, who's a Marvel super fan, it is the idea of seeing Carol Danvers interact with Kamala Khan's family and Monica Rambeau interacting with Kamala Khan's family. It's just like they're, larger than life characters, and they're in this like small home in New York is like cool, or New Jersey.
You don't have to you don't have to explain it to me, man. Yeah. The first time I saw a live action Moon Knight, I filled my pants. Right?
Right.
I get it.
Yeah. I've got my I updated my slab wall above me of Carol keys.
Carol keys.
My Carol keys.
You need a sign that says Carol keys.
I know. I'll walk through them. I've got my Captain Marvel, what is it? Marvel Superheroes 13 or something?
Yes.
And that's the first appearance of Carol Danvers.
Uh-huh.
And then I've got Captain Marvel 18, which is 1969, I want to say.
Okay.
And that's the issue where Carol gets superpowers.
Uh-huh.
And then I've got Miss Marvel 1, which is her debut as a superhero.
Okay.
And then I've got Avenging Spider-Man number 9, which is the issue where she first debuts as Captain Marvel.
Hell yeah.
Those are the 4 big ones to have, not counting Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel issues that debut other characters. Those are like the key Carol keys.
Yeah. You need to get a Captain Marvel number 1 slab.
Yeah, I know. I'd like to get that Kelly Sue DeConnick issue in a 9/8 would be nice.
Yeah.
I've got it floppy somewhere, but I don't think it's a 9/8.
Good stuff. Anything else?
Heck yeah. No,
final chance.
I finally got that out of my system.
Okay. Would you like to go first?
Well, yeah, so I think you and I might have read some of the same comics.
Okay.
Let me hit you with some titles first.
Perfect.
I read World Tree.
I read World TR33.
I read Seasons Have Teeth.
Got it right here.
And I read Guardians of the Galaxy.
Got it right here.
So 3 big titles of the week.
Excellent.
All right. So we'll be ready to have some combos here. Let's start with, since we're on a Marvel kick, we'll start with Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Everyone's kind of been wondering, what does Grootfall mean? That's the name of this arc. All the characters are in like cool Western new outfits. Like, what's that all about?
Yeah.
We're kind of getting some answers.
It's getting drip fed.
Yeah, it's getting drip fed to us. We got some amazing panels
Yeah.
and full pages of what Grootfall is, while not explained to us explicitly.
Yeah.
We got to see it.
Yeah.
And Groot, more or less, is just a massive mountain size. What would you almost say? I was gonna say like tumbleweed.
Oh yeah.
That's like
that fits thematically. Yeah.
He's like, I think, lighting on fire as he enters the atmosphere of this dry desert planet, and his like tendrils just start to like suck into the planet and just like devour everything, including the people.
Yeah.
And the Guardians are visiting this planet to get everyone off planet.
Right.
Save who they can, what they can, in like the minutes they have before they before Grootfall occurs. The planet is desert style, thus the kind of Western themed outfits. I don't know that theme is going to continue beyond this first issue, but I would love it to. I think the character designs were so cool.
Yeah.
It would be rad if they kept that motif for visiting these other planets.
I think they probably will.
Yeah.
Because it seems like like Mike said, we kind of get this like pieces of info. One of the pieces of info we get is that this is a Guardians team that has been jaded somehow. They are not only outlaws, but they're blackened somehow.
100%. And you see that in what they're happy with, what they're the amount they're happy with what they're able to accomplish.
Yeah.
Hey, like, we're not going to be able to save everyone. We've already accepted that.
Right.
So much in these superhero stories, or if this was a Captain America book, it would be like everyone or fucking no one.
Well,
Steve Rogers is dying with these people if he can't save every last soul.
He would have dove and sacrificed himself to save everyone else.
Where in this book, Gamora just kills a guy because he's like, let's speed this up.
Yeah.
Everyone who's arguing's got to shut up, and we got to go. And if you don't want to come, fine.
I will shoot you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay here and die. It's all going to burn anyway.
Yeah.
If we can get out of here with half of you, great. That's half of you that would have died that are going to live now.
Yeah.
They are so jaded towards it, and it's bizarre to see superheroes, even our more like rough around the edges type of heroes like a Drax, be so okay with letting all these people die.
Yeah.
Right in front of them.
Yep.
Mantis is a great character who can use her kind of like powers of influence to just get people on board and move them along.
But even Mantis seemed like she had some kind of like a DID or a PTSD kind of alternate personality maybe.
Yeah, they were like, here she is again.
Yeah.
She just popped back into it. So yeah, it's almost like Mantis is maybe at times using her own power on herself.
Yeah.
Just to keep herself like
afloat. For sure.
Yeah. It really surprised me to see the team that we had be so reflective of the team from the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously Rocket's not there. And obviously Groot is now like a big bramble monster.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we've got Nebula and Mantis with Star-Lord, Gamora, and Drax.
Yep.
And given I haven't been like a huge Guardians reader for the past like 5 years, but traditionally in Marvel Comics, or the comics that I used to read with this, movie-inspired team, Nebula and Mantis weren't really rolling with the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, that's the team I'm familiar. Mantis was tangentially, she was whatever part of the Guardians, but not part of the main team. Yeah, obviously they added her as, corporate synergy.
Yep.
But I think the team structure works. Yep. I loved this book.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
Well, and then we kind of see like the I love that the narration of the book is coming from one of the children on the alien planet, and it was like these guardians saved us, and it was kind of like a wistfully like thinking back on that time and who they were to us, and what they had become, and so you know there's some stuff that we're gonna unpack here.
Yeah,
I don't know. I really like in the first issues being left with a lot of questions, but I still had this really nice standalone story that was like Guardians were on this planet. They had some kick-ass new outfits that were really fun.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of action and explosions and cool alien character design, and they saved the aliens and tied a little bow on that one adventure. But in the meantime, we've been left with so many unknowns that subsequent issues are going to like jump back in time to answer here and there. Arrow TV show style.
Yes. That's right.
Here's the stuff you've been wondering about in a quick, little side excursion. So I'm excited to keep reading this one for sure.
Yeah, I will too. This is one, I know I mentioned it when they did the teaser for it on this show. This was a cover purchase for me.
Yeah.
I saw that Western style, man with no name is Star-Lord.
Yeah.
And I knew I was going to get it. And it's always nice when the cover hides a good book too.
Yeah. That cover is very striking. That's the cover I picked up as well. I saw there was a Derek Chu cover that's kind of popping off because it shows off Gamora's new outfit.
Oh, okay.
Which is very like burlesque pirate.
Yes.
It's kind of the way I'd put it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. A little thirsty, if you will.
A little thirsty, yeah.
Yeah.
But hey, she can swing it.
It's true.
If anybody can swing it, it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
The laws of physics and biology don't apply to Gamora, so
yep,
she can wear anything she wants.
I will allow it.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Seasons Have Teeth, since we both read that one too.
I love Dan Waters. He has done a handful of things with Danny, who is one of my favorite artists.
Uh-huh.
They did Coffin Bound together, and they did that Gotham Arkham book. I think it might have been a Black Label book, but it was like the guy with who's the villain with the fingers in his hand, or the eyes in his fingers.
I don't know.
They did in any case, they did like a really creepy book that might have been called like Arkham City or something. It was super cool.
Sure.
So love the author.
Yeah.
Always excited to see people that I love on doing big DC stuff to go back to indie.
Yeah. And
see kind of what they've been holding back as like a passion project or like storyline they want to keep to themselves.
Yeah. So this is, I would call it a horror book.
Yeah.
Would you call it a horror book? Looking at the cover and knowing that it's on Boom, I kind of anticipated it to be a horror book.
Yeah.
But once I got done with it, I was like, it's more of a drama?
Mm-hmm.
And in any case, it's about this main character whose wife has presumably died.
Yep.
And he's kind of living this sheltered life. He's a retired photographer.
Yeah, journalist, photographer.
Yeah. And everybody in his town has abandoned town because spring is coming.
Yeah.
And as we find out, spring is a literal monster.
Yes.
That rampages across.
It's like a kaiju-sized beast.
Yeah. Made of flowers and trees and a deer skull.
Uh-huh.
Every year, I guess, right? And each season is a different monster.
We can assume.
Well, they talk about summer.
Do they?
In that last panel.
Oh, I must have missed that.
It's on that Post-it.
Okay.
Whatever. So he is a journalist, and he stays in town to take pictures of spring.
Yep.
Remembering his wife the whole time and how she would have loved to see spring come through, and it's this whatever.
You get a great phone conversation that's like, you assume it's like him and his son or daughter or somebody who's calling him to make sure he got out of town okay.
Yeah.
And he lies and says like, I'm
already out of town,
I'm already
bed
out
and
of town,
breakfast
on
or
the
whatever.
road,
Yeah.
But us as the reader, we can see he's stayed behind and is either like has a death wish or has some different relationship to the spring monster.
Yeah. And that's kind of what is hinted at the end.
Yeah.
Is that maybe the monster isn't as monstrous as we think.
Yes. Right.
So I mean, to give anything else away is like to spoil the book, I guess.
I think we can spoil it, right?
Yeah.
We're a reading club.
That's true. That's true. So he finds these youths, mischievous youths, and he passes out because he gets stuck in this gazebo. It's collapsed, and he wakes up, and the spring monster is asleep or in some sort of hibernative state, and the kids walk up and start touching it.
Yep.
But the monster doesn't react to them.
Yeah.
So he snaps this picture, and the last page of the book is that picture on the front page
of the newspaper.
And that sticky note that I talked about said something like, "Summer is roaming through Munich next month. Do you want to go?" Something like that.
Yeah.
So I was absolutely intrigued by this book.
Yeah.
I mean, getting through it. I want to know more about this guy. I want to know more about his relationship with his wife. I want to know more about the world he lives in. I mean, it's the perfect issue 1.
Yeah, whether his wife was taken by one of these creatures or if she had some sort of involvement in how they came to be or something.
Right.
Like, we don't know, but it seems like his wife had some sort of like passion of knowing about these things.
Right.
Which is interesting to me. Additionally, there's a part where like he steps on a little weed. And the spring monster is like,
yeah.
And that I think there's maybe a motif to this that is like the seasons or nature in the world has like become personified out of like or wants some like retribution for like what we've done to the environment.
Sure.
And so, I mean, that could be something that's just like an overtone or undertone of this eventually when we read more, but that could just be me reading into it. But that particular scene was very striking to me.
Yeah.
And I think the bravo to the colorist. I don't know if it's one of the names on the cover or if it's like the artist did the colors as well.
I'll look it up.
But a lot of the book is in gray tones.
Yeah.
And then when you see spring for the first time, and it's like in all its vibrancy against this dark, washed out town. And you really like, it's like spring only exists as this monster, and the view of this world is just like gray winter.
Yeah.
And so to see this like striking beast come through that has all the colors of spring in a world like now devoid of nature and color was just like a really cool motif.
Yeah. I also liked the choice to have the flashback with his wife in green.
Yeah.
Instead of sepia or black and white or whatever.
Which you know leads you to think there was a simpler time then and things were right with nature and the seasons, and this is something that's happened in the last 20 years. At this point he looks like he's in his 60s maybe.
Correct. Sebastian Cabrol just listed as artist.
Oh, okay.
So presumably arts and color.
Yeah. Bravo.
Yeah. Great book. There are some pretty bomb-ass variants for it if that strikes your fancy.
Yep. I'll say for fans of sparse comics.
Yeah.
If you're looking for like a heady read, or if you need a lot of like exposition and world building, you don't necessarily get it in this first issue. It's pretty sparse.
Yeah.
But the promise of what's to come is like exciting.
Correct. I didn't realize Dan Waters did Homesick Pilots too.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's a great creator.
Yep. And Sebastian Cabral, the artist, did Hungry Ghosts, the Anthony
Hungry
Bourdain,
Ghosts, yeah.
and Maestro World War M for Marvel.
Oh, wow, okay.
Got some cred.
Yeah, nice. Right on.
You want to talk about World TR33?
Yeah.
Give us some hits.
So I'll just give you like some of the. Why don't I, instead of like saying what happens in the book?
Yeah.
Why don't I give you some just like broad themes?
Yeah.
And then give you like kind of my take on how what it felt like reading this book.
Okay.
So one of the big themes in it is like online culture and the violence it inspires. And like mass shooting or like senseless killings.
Okay.
And the last couple weeks I feel like have been tough for like mass killing stories in the news and legislators arguing over gun control, and it's just been like really depressing for me.
Yeah.
And so there was one side of this book that was just like hard to read because I was like,
hit too close.
Yeah, I don't want more like gun violence.
Yeah.
But if it's anybody, I feel like if it was a creator other than James Tynion, I might not have had the like second to step back and be like, okay, it's commentary, and he does stuff like this all the time where he takes like a interesting sci-fi bent and like uses it to hold a mirror up to culture at large and say, well, let's take this like gross, nasty part of who we are as humans and say like, what if this was like an uncontrollable thing, or what if this was a instead of a disease of the mind, more of like a real actual disease or affliction that could be like caught and transferred.
Cool.
Rather than
so kind of what he
like
did,
a mental illness thing. It's a Department of Truth mirrors pretty closely to like that being a commentary on alternative facts, and the truth is what I want to believe and what I read the most on Facebook. Well, like what if we say the thing culture believes at large actually becomes the truth?
Yeah.
It's kind of doing a similar thing in saying that seeing violence, experiencing violence becomes a literal mind virus.
Yeah.
Instead of like like a figurative mind virus.
It sounds a lot like what he did with Memetic. Cognetic.
Yeah.
That's way back when he was first starting out.
The book itself feels very on brand for Tynion.
Yeah.
All that to say, I think I can give you that context without like really spoiling much. It was an exhilarating, interesting read, but I felt very depressed and like gross while reading it too.
And which sounds like that was the intent.
It was probably the intent.
Yeah.
Which, you know, like I understand and I respect that as part of the art is evoking a certain feeling from somebody, but it's like just like anything that's like a movie that I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to like sit down and like feel bad to like appreciate like this thing.
Schindler's List.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like I know Schindler's List is an incredible movie, and I know I like am gonna love it, but like working long weeks and like feeling like bummed all week,
Right.
and then being like, Friday I'm gonna sit down and watch like
Schindler's
List for 3 hours.
Yeah.
It's just kind of hard to be like, okay, now the Holocaust movie after like all this.
You got to gear up for it.
Yes, yeah. But once you get through those things, you really appreciate them. So I'll say that I think this is one of those things. Sometimes it feels like a little nasty or gross to make like a sci-fi story out of something that feels so real. But I don't know. This book's, I think I'm going to keep buying it and keep reading it. I think it's going to be a hard pill to swallow for me.
Sure.
My wife is a teacher as well. And I mean, like, there's been a lot of discourse every time gun violence happens. There's always tons of discourse on what elementary school teachers' responsibilities are and what sort of like weapons could be on hand at elementary schools and whether that helps or hurts. And that being part of my life and like thinking about what my wife has to deal with and what her students have to think about when they go to schools, and then be confronted with this as like these themes as like a comic book.
Yeah. It's tough.
It's just kind of tough. Yeah.
I feel you. My fiance is a middle school teacher too.
Yeah.
So I'm there with you. Yeah. I'm with you. Well, I'm looking forward to being bummed by this book when it comes out in 2 weeks.
Right.
Thank you, Mike D.
Yeah. April 26th is the new drop date for it. Like I said, I think a lot of comic shops just went ahead and sold it.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I'm going to be getting that Frizen variant. I'll tell you that much.
Very cool cover.
The 1 in 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm getting that one.
Yeah.
On a different note.
Yes.
I read the new Jerry Duggan book.
Hey.
The Giant Kokju.
Lighter fare.
A little bit lighter. So this is from the Deadpool team.
Uh-huh.
Jerry Duggan and Scott Kolbish.
Yeah.
And it is...
What publisher?
Image.
Image, okay.
Yeah. So it's Godzilla. If Godzilla shit and had sex with a building.
Uh-huh.
This is not for children. Literally the first thing this Godzilla creature does when he gets out of the water is takes a big dump all over a building.
Oh my god.
And the dump like melts people. And then it mutates them into like other creatures that eat people. And then the big monster has sex with a building.
Yeah.
And they show his big monster penis. And there's only one man who can stop the Godzilla creature. You know, there's some human that predicted that this would happen, whatever.
Okay.
But it has the same themes as the monster that inspired it. You know, we humans have destroyed the planet.
Yes.
And this is Earth's response.
Yeah.
Judging by the cover, there will eventually be a giant robot.
Oh, that robot doesn't show up in this issue.
Does not show up.
What a disappointment after a cover like this.
I know.
This seems more like the cover for like a trade then. That's like, here's a little more all-encompassing view of what the book will be.
You see that.
Yeah, you got to buy it.
You got to buy it, right? But no, it's a hysterical book. If you're into the kind of Deadpool-esque gross-out comedy, this does not disappoint by any stretch. I mean, if you know Jerry Duggan's writing, this is squarely in bounds for him.
Yeah. Well, and it looks like the cast of characters on the cover of the book, too, looks like it's a fun... Like it's a diverse cast. The ages are all over the place.
Yeah. We only meet the old retired scientist maybe.
Yeah.
And the general.
Okay.
Whoever that is.
Yeah.
We haven't met any of these other characters yet.
All right, cool.
But yes, I'm looking forward to this book, seeing how it comments on how we've destroyed the planet, seeing how it comments on the military industrial complex. And how, because it talks about that, how instead of pursuing green technology, we've pumped money into the military.
Yeah, right.
So that's, of course, our response is a military response. A lot of commentary on that, but it's all very tongue-in-cheek, very funny.
Yeah, cool.
So a little bit lighter after you're done reading World Tree.
It sounded like I needed this book this week.
Yeah.
I could have used this as a palate cleanser.
It was a lot of fun. I would recommend it to anyone who can take, a little bit of politically charged humor.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Right.
Really fun. Not a lot else to say.
Yeah, right on. It was a good week for first issues. I mean,
I know. I didn't even talk about Captain America.
Yeah, right? Did you read it?
Yeah. Cold War? For sure. It started.
Oh, what time are we at? We're over an hour.
I know.
We can take it to the Patreon.
Okay.
All right. All right. Hopefully we catch you guys over on the Patreon. Otherwise, we'll see you next week in lieu of Greg.
You can find us online.
Yes.
On Instagram, on Twitter.
Yes.
You can email us, right? First Issue Club Podcast.
Yeah. First Issue Club Podcast at gmail.com.
And patreon.com/First Issue Club.
First Issue Club.
What else? See, Greg's not here to check the boxes for us.
Until next time, bag and boredom.
Perfect.
That's his thing, he says. First Issue Club is edited and produced by Mike D, Greg Lichtag, and Andy Vargas. Follow us on social media at First Issue Club, and check out our Patreon for videos, audio, and more at patreon.com/First Issue Club.